Hi, I'm Bonnie Compton, child and adolescent therapist, parent coach, and I want to welcome you to my Parenting with Courage conversation series. Today, we are going to be talking about kids and their eating habits. Well, moms and dads, I don't know if you struggle like many parents that I work with do, but kids resist eating, many of them, not all, healthy foods. And so I have invited my guest, Ebeth Johnson, to join me today, and we're going to talk about how to inspire and instill healthy eating habits for yourself. Yes, it begins with you, your kids, and your family. So welcome, Ebeth. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you could just give your background, because I could talk a lot about you, but it should come from you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, first, just thank you so much for having me and for having this conversation. I think it's such an important one for parents and families to be having about how to feed themselves, feed their children, feed their whole family really well. So I'm just grateful to be here talking about this. But yeah, my name is Ebeth Johnson, and I'm a mindful eating coach and well life mentor, mostly for women, but also for a few good men. Who are ready to really tap into what I see as the incredible healing power of whole foods that are delicious and nourishing, and who also want to start practicing some self-love and self-care through food and movement and mindset. And this journey really started for me as a child when my pediatrician told me I was gaining weight at such an astronomical rate that I was going to be an obese child, an obese adult with lots of health challenges.
At what age, Ebeth? At what age were you told that?
I was about 9 or 10 at that time. And I remember it so clearly because after hearing that, I was scared, I was nervous, I was embarrassed because I was overweight. And I also felt helpless because even though this doctor gave us, meaning my mom and myself, this prognosis for my future, he didn't give us any tools or strategies on how to change the way that we were eating and living and moving. He just kind of sent us out into the world to fix this.
Which happens quite a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that experience has really colored my work for my entire life. I've spent my career really helping people to feel confident, to have the information they need to change the way they eat and live, to change the way they think about themselves and food and movement, so that they can change the way that they eat and live and feel in their body and their life. And not just for 30 days or 21 days, but for their entire life. And I think parents in particular need those skills for themselves so that they can teach their children how to do that, so that their kids don't have to have that experience, you know.
Right. And we look at disease in this country and how many diseases are related to obesity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's such a sad state right now, especially in the United States, where we see so many more cases of young children who are obese, who have diabetes, who are having strokes, who are having heart attacks. And so much of this can be linked to what they're eating and not eating and a lack of movement. So if we can change the way that our parents, our sort of community of parents are working with their children and their family at large around food and wellness, I personally believe that we can change this epidemic within one generation.
So do I, absolutely. And I also want to say that Ebeth, you are a professional chef and a plant-based nutritionist.
Thank you.
Bring all sorts of knowledge to the work that you do, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am a trained chef, and I always like to tell people that I chose a very specific type of culinary program because I wanted to learn more about cooking, but I didn't want to learn how to cook the foods that had made me fat and unhealthy in the first place.
Sure.
So I chose a really amazing culinary school that taught me all of the traditional French and Japanese culinary techniques, but with an education and emphasis on food as healer, food as prevention and protector. So it was an amazing program, and it informs all of my work.
Right. That's at the basis of all of it, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's jump in. From my perspective, because I work with a lot of parents and they are very frustrated about their kids and so they with their eating habits. So some parents have picky eaters, some have ones, and there's more and more of these this time in this time period that want to snack all day long. I'm calling it the snack generation. We
Mm,
never years ago had snack trap, the cups to go in the car. We never
yes.
had the packs to go. It's become snack in the morning at school, snack after lunch, snack after school, and then they don't want to eat dinner and all they want to do is snack, right?
Mm, yes.
So, and then I have worked with many parents who absolutely dread dinner time. And when
Yeah.
they tell me how their dinner is, I would dread it too if I were them. So it's either I don't want to eat this, I don't like this, and parents become short order cooks and pretty soon
Yes.
making 3 or 4 different meals.
Yeah.
Or kids are up down at the table playing with their food, complaining, why do we have to eat this? I'm not hungry until dinner time is over, and then they are starving before bed.
Yes.
I'm so hungry. So this is the kind
Yeah.
of thing that I help parents with a lot.
Mm,
And I'm so excited to have you here today because we're going to go even farther beneath that
mm,
into what is healthy for kids and how to inspire them to want to eat healthy. And one of the things, Ebeth is also a colleague, a friend of mine, and I am in her Facebook group, private Facebook group, and I began to see she would post pictures of her son's lunch.
yes.
And I found myself looking. Now I have 4 granddaughters, and 2 of them love veggies and all this. The other 2 are carbs, so that's all they want: carbs, carbs, carbs.
Mm,
But I found myself, and I should say, because I work with a trainer, a personal trainer, she goes, carbs aren't bad. So I always say, now carbs in a box, carbs in a bag. So carbs are not bad. But
yes.
I saw your son's lunch, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Many kids would look at that and say, I'm not eating that. And it was, I think,
Yeah.
one day kale and sweet potatoes, and it was
Mm,
beautiful. It was a balance
thank
of
you.
colors, and I thought, I have always believed it is possible, and that inspired me to get in touch with you and say, okay,
Oh, thank
let's
you.
help
Yeah.
what's out here.
I do get a lot of questions and comments when I post my son's lunch. It's true. I get comments like, man, could you make my lunch? Or
Oh yeah,
how do you get him to eat that stuff? I think is the question that people
right.
really want to know. Is like, how is it that this 7-year-old is eating kale and collard greens and sweet potatoes and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and his lunchbox comes back empty? How does that happen? So I think there's a few things for that. For one, um, my son, that has been his experience his entire life, right? So um, that's all he knows. All I've ever fed him have been vegetables and fruits and whole grains and homemade food. So one great strategy is, for those of you who have younger kids in particular, is to just continue to offer those healthy foods in beautiful and delicious ways to your child. And it can take several introductions. Some children love it right away. Some children take some time to get used to the flavors of different things. The other thing I do with Cayenne is I have had him in the kitchen with me since he was in my little Ergo baby carrier. So he's been around food. He gets to taste things as they are being prepared. He gets to watch me turn whole, fresh ingredients into soups and stews and sautés and stir fries. So he is privy to all of that. It's not, we make mealtime prep, like thinking about what we're actually going to eat during the week, to making the food in the kitchen, to plating it, to serving it on the table. All of that is a family endeavor, and he's involved in that. So I will include him in, what do you want to have to eat this week? I don't make deciding the meals only on me. So I'll ask him, what vegetables do you want to have this week? Or if we're at the store, I'll even, oh, do you hear an echo now?
No, I
No?
don't.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just keep going. Um, when we're at the store, I'll ask him, do you see something here that looks beautiful to you, that's interesting for you? And for me, I know it might be a little more of a comfortable space for me. I'm a trained chef, and so I know what a lot of these ingredients are. But even if you don't, even if it's a little bit scary to think that your child's going to pick an ingredient in the produce section that you don't even know what it is, part of the fun and the joy of that is figuring that out together. Just like you might open a Lego set and figure out how to put that together, and that would be a family fun activity. It can be the same for a piece of produce, a fruit or vegetable that you're not familiar with how to make it. Okay, let's take this home.
Yes,
let's go online. Let's look. Yeah. And it can be really fun.
Yeah.
And I find the more involved that your child can be in meal planning, in meal prep, in serving food, the more likely they are to at least try something new.
Right.
Because they've been involved in it.
I have read research, and feel free to comment on this, that it takes 20 to 30 times of trying a food before your taste bud can even discern if it's palatable, if it's something you like or not. So I always tell parents to tell their kids that it is their parents' job to introduce these foods. They may not like it in the beginning, and that's okay, but it takes 20 to 30 times before you can really discern whether you like something or not. You may not like bitter, you may not like sweet.
But yeah, I do agree. It can take some time. It can take as much as 20 introductions. I would think it took about 20 introductions for me to finally like okra, for example.
I'm still working on that one.
Yeah, you've got a few more tries in you. But one of the things I like to do, even for the first or second introduction, is to do what I call the 3-try rule. So when we're trying something new, I encourage Cayenne or any of my clients to do this as well, to taste the food 3 times in one sitting. And you start from a place of opening your mind, because oftentimes when we're trying to taste something new, our feeling is fear. And when we're afraid that we're not going to like it, it's going to feel strange in our mouth, or whatever the fear might be around that, whether it's flavor or texture. So to kind of leave that fear at the door and to approach the new food from the space of, I'm really curious what this might be like. Is it going to be sweet? Is it going to be salty? Is it going to be crunchy? Is it going to be chewy? Let's find out from a space of optimistic exploration. Right. And then we try it 3 times. And the first time is, okay, I have no idea what this is. Let me just see what it's like. Right. The second time, okay, we'll take a second bite. Now let me think about it. Let me ponder, what do I feel? What do I taste? And then the third time, you say, well, do I like it or not? So you can do that even in one sitting or at one meal. Right. You can even do it as a family. Let's all talk about this. And it's a great opportunity to teach kids how to taste something, how to talk about how they feel about food in a way that feels safe and secure. It's okay not to like it, but it's not okay to be rude or disrespectful. So it's not okay to say, ew, this is nasty. But it is okay to say, I don't really enjoy the bitterness of this. I find this too crunchy. And so we can teach our children how to use respectful and clear language to express how they feel about a food. And it can be fun and educational, and you don't always have to like it, and that's fine. And then you just move on.
Right. But you've tried it at least. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you find with Cayenne that one of the fear, well, it's not even a fear, is that kids that are not allowed to have the junk food will then go outside the house and crave it? Have you seen with Cayenne or any of the clients you work with, kids who are trading their lunches at school, which is a common thing for the junk food?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting actually, because Cayenne will come back now and report to me that, someone in school offered him, a cookie, a candy or whatever. And he'll say one of 2 things. He'll say, well, and I just couldn't resist, but I just had one bite, mommy, just one bite, or he'll say, I said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends for him on what it is.
Right.
But in general, I think the idea that restricting or I don't even want to use the word restrict, but creating guidelines around what is acceptable to eat as part of your regular everyday diet would then encourage kids to go on some rampage when they have the opportunity. I think that fear is misplaced. Because it's not to say, so for example, for Halloween, right, we went trick-or-treating. Cayenne will tell you he got 65 pieces of candy. And we knew, and he, I set the expectations from the beginning. Look, we can dress up, we can go get all the candy you can fit in that basket. You will eat 3 pieces over 3 days, and that's it. So that was just the ground rule that we set. It allows him to participate in this activity, but in a mindful and as healthy a way as possible. But it's not to say that he never eats anything sweet or never has cookies or cakes or never has pizza. My intention is not about depriving children or families of delicious food, but to make those choices more mindfully. And I think if you're creating a food environment that has some flexibility and that also teaches kids why certain foods are more acceptable for regular consumption and why other foods are sometime foods and some foods are never foods. If they understand that it's not my mommy never lets me have this, it's I understand why this is happening and I enjoy what I eat. So I don't feel the need for
that's
that.
key right there. And he knows it comes from love that you are guiding him healthy eating.
Yes.
So I'm curious, the 3-day rule with 1 candy per day,
Mm-hmm.
was that perhaps not so that chances are he probably wouldn't even want more given the way he eats, but so that he didn't begin to develop this addiction to sugar? Or
I don't know that he would get addicted to sugar in that shorter period, but I do think that if he were to eat those 3 pieces at once, he probably would not feel well.
no, but I was wondering, instead of, some parents will say you can have 1 piece of candy a day, and often for many kids they forget about it after a week or 2. They don't even ask for the Halloween candy. Now some crave it, but I'm just curious, and maybe you thought about this, maybe you didn't. Was it for 3 days so that he wouldn't begin craving it? I don't know.
No, I think I was trying to really prevent him from having all 3 pieces at once. That was really my goal.
That was your goal.
Yeah. So I said, well, we can have 3, but not all at the same time. We're going to space this out essentially so that he's not so much so he doesn't have an addiction trigger to it, but so that the impact of this, most of the Halloween candy is pretty poor quality, high fructose corn syrup, coloring, etc. To prevent the effect of that candy to be greater by having all 3 at once. I figured if we separate them, it would be better. But yeah, he doesn't have those kind of treats every day. I mean, we're not a dessert every day type of family, or if it is, it's berries or something like that. And that does have more to do with creating flavor preferences and reducing the likelihood of those types of addictions to sugar. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I know that and I've read about it and heard about it, about instead of looking at this as, you've got to be on a strict diet or whatever, but crowding out the unhealthy foods.
Oh, yes. I love that.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Because I think
where parents get stuck, it's like, okay, we have a pantry full of snacks, this and that, and if I take them away from my kids, they're going to go bonkers. So
yes. Well, I kind of see those as 2 different questions. So as far as so for the parent who has the pantry full of snacks, who's decided, what, this isn't really for us, I want to move in a healthier direction, and how do I transition from this cupboard full of snacks that my kid loves and is probably going to freak out when I say no, to having a house full of fruit and vegetables, and all of those become snacks, let's say. For trying to transition with that, I encourage a couple of things. One would be to start with a family meeting. Really, I love to start with a conversation with the entire family, parents getting on the same page about what are the intentions and expectations and what they're going to uphold together as a family. Because it's a challenge if one parent is really into it and the other parent is not. And the kids, they know, right? And they'll
Right.
know which parent to go to get what they want.
Exactly.
So the first thing is to get the parents on the same page. Then I think to have a meeting with the kids to say, this is what is happening. This is why this is happening. And for kids who are old enough to elicit from them their ideas about how to make this happen in a way that feels good for them, so they feel like they're a part of it. And I think kids of many ages can participate in that, from like 5 and up. Of course, it'll be of different levels, but they can express themselves and share, their ideas. And it'd be great to incorporate that into the strategy moving forward for the family. But then also for the parents to be really clear about, this is how we're going to phase this out. This is what we're going to substitute this with. And to be flexible and understanding that it's a process. It's probably better to not do it cold turkey one day, but to instead take some time to
Right.
transition the family through that. Then for the other part of, what was it that you said? It was more about, crowding out the bad stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so I love that as a strategy. It's great to get kids and adults really, full on the good stuff first. So vegetables, of course, low sugar fruits are great. Things that your child really, really likes, but that are also healthful for them and that are in alignment with where you're trying to go on your wellness journey as a family, to really focus on those first. And if you have a child or family that is accustomed to having, let's say, dessert after every meal, maybe they always have a cookie or something. Maybe the strategy is, okay, we're going to have a cookie, but first we need to eat all of the vegetables on our plate. And tonight we're going to have one cookie, and maybe for the next few days we'll have one cookie, but then we're going to have half. And then we're only going to have a quarter. And then we're going to switch it to fruit. So all that time you're filling them up on the foods that are most nourishing and nurturing, and prepared deliciously and beautifully, and you're slowly taking away the foods that are not as nourishing. That gives their palate time to adjust. It gives their expectations time to adjust as well, and it's a less traumatic experience.
Or perhaps, and I know you've posted some wonderful things that you have made, and I've seen online others have posted cookies that are more healthy. There's not
sure, yeah,
sugar in them, and perhaps beginning to substitute,
yes,
that sort of thing. Because there is, for some kids, it's a true addiction.
Yes,
and there will
sure.
be, and I know in my work with parents are always like, but they're going to have a major temper tantrum. They are going to melt down. And I talk about fear-based parenting. If you're parenting from your own anxiety, then are you really able to parent with a clear mind and offer healthy guidelines? Because you're held hostage, basically, as a parent. And fear of meltdown.
I think that's true. And what I think it's helpful for parents to remember too, two things. I think the challenge with that is, I think the challenge that parents often face is that we feel really confident and secure about being setting strong boundaries about other things like safety or violent toys or inappropriate books or television, because we really believe that making those decisions is important for our child, to protect our child or for our child's health or safety. And I think one of the first steps is to really see what we're feeding our child and what kind of guidelines and parameters we set as equally valuable and protective and nourishing and nurturing of our child as any other boundaries that we set. I think that many of us don't see food from that same place, or it's also possible that parents, we feel so kind of drained by all the effort it takes to uphold all these other boundaries that we may set, that when we get to food time, we're like, oh, forget it. I'm just, I'm done with, trying to manage my child's expectations.
I only have so much energy at this point. Sure.
Right. Yeah. But I think if we refocus some of our things that we really value, to include food and nutrition as one of those things that's equally valuable to not giving them so much screen time, or making sure they know how to read, or making sure they get outside and play, to they've got to eat well. So if all of these things have equal weight, then it becomes easier to uphold some of those strategies and guidelines, even with a whining kid,
That's great.
because we see it as just as important.
Great. That's a great point. And as I, I've said, talking to kids about it takes 20 to 30 times to develop. It's my job as your mom or dad. So, letting them know, I want you to grow into your best version, healthiest version of yourself.
Yes.
And that we're not going to, of course you can have dessert sometimes and that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I was thinking about these 20 or 30 introductions for parents who have really young kids. I mean, consider that these introductions begin from the point of, if you're a breastfeeding mom, what you're eating is changing the flavor of your milk, and your child is being introduced in that way. To starting solids, more introductions are happening there. To toddlers, more introductions are happening there. So it's helpful for us too to think about those introductions as starting from an earlier point than just 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can start that process really early.
Really early, absolutely. And I also believe it's never too late.
Never too late.
So
yes.
What about families, because they are so busy and just trying to get through the day, and by dinner time, working families coming home, kids are tired, everybody's tired.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? Because I know for some families, fast food becomes the easiest thing to do on the way home.
Yes.
And I know planning ahead, we've talked about that. And I so agree. I talk to parents about engage your kids in meal planning. And one of the things I used to do with my kids, I have 4 kids, in the summertime is, who wants to cook dinner this week? And I would be there to help, but they would plan the meal and they would do it, and they feel so empowered, and they're much more likely to engage in eating the food.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
So do you have some tips for those for dinner time?
Yeah, as far as saving time, I think having a plan is key. I think I think we have to make it a priority. We have to say first, okay, I'm choosing to make meal prep a priority. And I prioritize it so much so that I actually schedule it. Like I do other important appointments, doctor's appointments, soccer games, recitals, meal prep. I put that on my calendar and I schedule other things around it. And then when you're thinking about meal prep, I think using your slow cooker or pressure cooker to make large batch things like soups and stews is a great way to save time in the future. I tend to encourage a double batch and intend to freeze half, so that over time, if you make a soup or stew once a week for several weeks and you always double it, you're going to have a freezer full of go-to meals after a very short period, right? I also encourage making bulk things like grains. Never only make enough grains for one meal. If you're a family that loves quinoa or brown rice or wild rice or whatever, make it in a large batch. Again, you can freeze it and it will save so much time during the week for grab and go meals. And I would encourage you to research recipes. That many recipes take 20 or 30 minutes or less, even from start to finish to complete. I personally don't do a whole lot of meal prep in the way that many people do, as far as, although I do support this, like batch cooking, a sheet pan of a ton of veggies, a couple of pans of roasted chicken breast or thigh or whatever you like. And having those ready to make meals out of. For example, if you have the roasted chicken and the roasted veggies, you can turn that into 3 different things. It could just be roast chicken and veggies one night. It could be roast chicken and veggie soup, add some broth to it. Another night, saute it with some ginger and garlic and serve it over rice. And then it's Asian the third night. So, you can take that one, it'll take an hour or so to cook all of that food. But once you've done that and you have it in the fridge ready to go, you've got quick meals, 10, 15 minutes most, during the week to kind of just reheat, assemble, season. That's really all that would be necessary. So I guess plan your meals, use your slow cooker, double batch and freeze, and think about how you can repurpose really gently flavored foods into other meals throughout the week.
Well, we have an Instant Pot. Now, I will say I don't
Oh,
know how to
cool.
use it. My husband is the expert, and I've just let him. He never used to cook. I cooked for 4 kids, our family all the time, and I've kind of enjoy cooking somewhat, but I'd rather do other things now. So he's actually cooking more, which is awesome.
Oh, that's
I
great.
recommend Instant Pots, and I get nothing for endorsing this
Yeah.
for families because it's amazing how quickly you can create a meal.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things about the Instapot. It's on my Christmas list actually, because I really want to try it and see what it's about.
Well, it's funny
I've
because
heard great things.
one of our adult daughters said our crock pot was a very nice crock pot and it just was taking forever to cook.
Yeah.
And I was going to invest in another one. She said, we have a chef friend and all he uses at home is Instant Pot. It's good enough
Yes,
for professional chefs. It's good enough. So it is amazing, truly
for
amazing.
sure.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So, Ebeth, I want to thank you so much for being here.
It's
I
a
want
pleasure.
you to be able to let parents know how they can get in touch with you and any upcoming programs. I know you have a 6-week program that you run to help families. So,
Yes, yes.
talk about that a little.
So I would be honored to support any families who are looking to create a more nourishing and nurturing and delicious food environment for themselves and their families. So you can reach out to me on my website, which is just my name, ebethjohnson.com. You can join my newsletter there. You can send me an email there as well. And as Bonnie was saying, I do offer a 6-week coaching program. I'm actually in the middle of one now, and the next one will begin in mid-December, and then we'll have another round in the second week of January. And coming up even sooner, I'm going to do an actually complimentary webinar specifically for moms and families around this issue of saving time in the kitchen, of stopping fighting about having to eat vegetables at dinner, how to incorporate more vegetables into your meal plans, how to lovingly embrace some parental power, I guess, or parental prowess around how you get those picky eaters to eat what you want them to eat, really, and to eat things that are healthy for them and make it less stressful and more fun for everyone.
And when is
So
that? When is the date for the webinar?
Yes, that's a really great question.
Okay. All right.
That I haven't figured out yet, but I'll
Okay.
definitely
Well, if they go
post it
on your
on my
website,
website.
if
Yeah, it'll be
website,
on my
okay.
website.
Also,
Yeah, and
tell them about your Facebook page because
yes,
I'm on that and I love seeing what you post. And sometimes you
thank you.
cooking shows.
Yes,
Anyway, go ahead
yes.
and tell them that.
So my Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/live deliciously. But you can just, even if you go to my website, in fact, you can just click on the Facebook icon and you'll be directed there as well. But it's a great place. There's tons of recipes. I do little cooking shows there. I post information, inspiration, and I love it. And it's a really wonderful community there.
And you also post your own workout sometimes, which I love.
Oh yeah,
Always
I
such
do.
an inspiration because there are days like I don't feel like doing this. And I'm like, and then I see you, it pops up. I'm like, get outside and walk. Yeah, I'm like, okay. So
I'm so glad to hear that. Yes, I do post my sweaty selfies and my rollers and,
yes, I know.
and everything.
I love it. You're real. You just show up. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you.
Parents, thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to learn more about my work, you can go on my website, bonniecompton.com. I also have a Facebook group called Wholehearted Parenting. I would love to support you. Take care. Until next time.